Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. And my guest today, you probably know her. She is the author of these two books, Charming Colorwork Socks and the new book, Joyful Colorwork Socks. Charlotte Stone, welcome to my channel.
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking me, Irina. It's so cool to be here and to be asked, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you a lot about sock knitting.
And congratulations on your new book. I was actually very impressed that you can come up with another 25 ideas for the designs after this successful Charming Colorwork Socks book.
Thank you. It was funny because the editor actually contacted me to do the second one, and she was like, "Yeah, we'd love you to do another book. We would like another 25 patterns, right?" And I was like, uh, uh. And then like literally in that 5 minutes, I have ideas always. Yeah, they're always in the notes of my phone, and I just literally sat down and wrote down 25 ideas. And I was like, okay. Well, I think it was more than 25. I think it was like 30. But then she was like, right, we need to put them into chapters. And so it was there. But yeah, when she said it was kind of like when your partner says, let's have another child, it's like,
Well, you would know. You have three, I have three. We would both know that, right?
yeah, you know the task you're taking on. So
Before we get into the books, and we'll get into the books, I promise, but
yeah,
let's talk a little bit about you. How did you even get into the knitting? When did you start?
I started knitting when I was very young. I can't even remember not being able to knit, but I think I was about 6 or 7. I was a very creative child. I was quite active, I think, and I'm gonna guess my family were like desperate for me to kind of like sit down and do something. So I did all sorts of things as a kid. I liked doing beading and sewing, and I liked writing and drawing. I took up calligraphy. I
Nice.
took up like quilling with this like little paper, and my both my nans and my mum, and I had great aunts too, and everyone knitted, and I think one of the nans crocheted, and yeah, I think someone just kind of gave me needles and yarn to keep me quiet, and it clicked. And I remember being very young and the yarn being like acrylic and the needles being the worst needles on earth. But still there was something. And I was dropping holes everywhere. I didn't care. I literally didn't care. I just kind of enjoyed doing it. So I did that a lot, made a lot of scarves.
Yeah.
Um, but didn't really kind of progress. And then I came back to it. I was always interested and always liked knitted things, and I came back to it. So when I was pregnant with my first child, so like 20 years ago now, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make her blankets, I'm gonna make her this, that, and the other. So yeah, I came back to it then. But it wasn't until we moved to Switzerland. My husband moved here for work, and I had to kind of give up work because I don't speak very good German, and the Swiss school system is such that they come home for lunch,
Mhm.
so it's kind of difficult for women to work, really. So I was kind of bored at home here, and I got more and more interested in knitting. That it was taking off on social media too, and lots of those blogs. There were lots of internet blogs too, and I loved them. So yeah, and then I kind of got more adventurous, bought a few books, and yeah, got more into it to them when I had some kind of more time, and I was kind of bored at home. I love my children. I just thought I'd add. But I was kind of bored at home. I'm always kind of being creative, and I wanted to sort of use my mind a little bit more than hoovering and doing the washing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you grew up in London in England, right? Was there a
yes,
program in school that taught knitting? Was that part of the like home economics class?
not at all, not at all. But my so I must have been about 6, and there was a teacher called Mrs. Egan, and she taught us. She was very old, God bless her, and she taught us all. She loved fiber arts, so she taught us knitting and sewing and weaving, and she taught us spinning too. And she told me I was the world's worst ever spinner. So I was 6. So I've never attempted it since. But yeah, she that was kind of weird and rare, I think, in London then.
Do you remember like the things that your grandmothers were knitting?
Yes. So they no one ever knit socks. I know that. My dad's mum had been made to knit socks at school, and she couldn't turn a heel. And yeah, she found it impossible, and she kept, apparently, this is, I don't know, this is like legend in the family, she kept having to rip it out and knit it back up again, and it would go wrong, and it was white yarn, and she kind of made it all dirty by like knitting it over and over, and she was actually caned on her hand
Oh
for
my God.
not being able to knit a heel. So I was actually terrified of socks from this like legend from my grandma when I was a kid, of her not being able to knit a heel. So I think she'd be really shocked, because unfortunately she never knew sort of about me taking on knitting to this point. Yeah, I think she'd be shocked that it was socks.
Do you remember your first pair of socks that you knitted?
Yes, they were terrible. They were absolutely terrible. I used a book called it was like Total Knitting for Beginners, and it was a book. I'm not sure you can, well, I'm not sure I can learn how to knit something from a book. I'm much better with YouTube. I know I've written 2 books, but they're more kind of like a collection of patterns, and sort of, I do explain how to do things, but not like completely straight from beginners. And but I learned how to knit this sock. The book must have been good from this book, but it was worsted weight, and it
Oh,
was this nasty pea green cheap yarn, and it's truly ugly. It was true, and I didn't get gauge. It was like huge. It was big floppy sock, but I did turn that heel, and I felt like I was a magician. And then I did go on, and I knitted plain socks. I learned from a blog post from Susan B. Anderson, who's in the US, and I learned from her, and I enjoyed it, but I found knitting plain socks quite boring. So yeah, it was, yeah, I was like, oh, well, this is okay. And I loved wearing them because I hate having cold feet. But yeah, the plain socks were to me, quite boring. So it was when I started seeing like Scandinavian knitters, and seeing like Arnie and Carlos and people in Sweden and Norway, and they were knitting these socks with these patterns on them.
right.
And it was just something in my brain that just went, oh, that looks like, yeah, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
Well, there is a difference between wanting to knit something and getting into the design of it all, right? Like reinventing the wheel and like starting your own things, because you don't even use like stitch dictionaries for your socks. You actually go from scratch and you draw the
Yeah,
things, and then you try to make it look like it's supposed to look.
yeah.
Was the first time then you decided that like whatever the world already has to offer was not enough for you and you wanted something of your own?
It, yeah. I knitted quite a few Colorwork socks, and got the hang of the technique, and worked out what I was doing. I've always been obsessed with drawing, which I think helps. I think personally I underestimated how much that has actually helped me with my designing. And okay, so this sounds crazy, but my first Colorwork sock pattern, I actually dreamt it. I'd been watching Mad Men, the TV show, and there was this character, her name was Joan, and she was wearing this black dress, this long black like ball gown dress, and it had like red roses on it. And I was like, I don't know, I dreamt one night or after I'd seen that episode of this black sock and having the roses like on it, like she had it. And I had a look and I was like, is there anything else like this already? And there wasn't. And I drew it up. I must have just been having like a real fearless moment. I drew it up and I thought, right, I'll just knit it. Like what the worst can happen. So these were my first ever design.
I love
You
that.
can see they've got the roses. I think they've got a hole in them, by the way, because they're quite old. But so yeah, the first one I did, I didn't really. I wasn't writing to design to sell, and I didn't realise that. So I always knit the stockinette sections at a lower stitch count and go up the stitches for the colour work to make sure it fits on your foot properly. And I started off with a smaller amount of stitches and went up and then continued with like the larger amount of stitches here, and it just looked terrible. So yeah, so I had like the colour work and then I had this flappy bit of stock and so yeah, I was like, oh, what am I doing? Like I was really like, oh God, what am I doing? But I thought, no, yeah, you're gonna have to rip back and do it again. And yeah, I did it a few times and then got it right. And then I thought, okay, what's gonna hurt? I'm just gonna share it on social media and look, I've come up with this idea and they're cool. And I had this idea and like immediately and I'm really grateful for it. I was like bombarded with when can I buy the pattern? And I was like, hang on, hang on, I don't even know if I can write a pattern. But and I've always loved writing. So I thought, all right, well, I'm gonna try it. I'll try it. I'll try it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Like I publish it and it's nonsense and rubbish and no one buys it. And oh well, never mind. Let's just try it. I didn't even know how to publish anything on Ravelry.
Right. Was it difficult to learn how to write the patterns?
Um, yes, because I really was obsessed with not doing it the same way as anyone else. I didn't want I'm obsessed with I don't want to copy anyone. So like even with my short row heel, people go, oh, what's that short row heel called? And I'm like, I don't know, I made it up. So literally I'm like, I don't want it to be copied. So yeah, I do remember the first time of writing the pattern. I wanted to really try and explain it for someone who didn't know anything like how to knit. So I really wanted to make it so clear. I probably got things wrong. I know, and I probably didn't use the abbreviations like I should have, and I've gone back and I've redone that pattern, but but it did work. It did work. People did buy the pattern and they did successfully go and knit the socks.
Right.
And as soon as that happened, like it was like, I don't know, it was just so amazing. It's when someone else knits your pattern, and they do it in different colours. And I remember I got a couple of friends to test knit it as well before I released it. And they're like, yeah, it's perfect. It works.
Well, you talk in your books, in both books actually, about the importance of gauging. And I interviewed a bunch of Shetlanders, and they are not really fans of gauging. So they use hats, knitted hats.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how do you gauge a sock, right? Because like by the time you get the gauge, the sock is done, as far as I can
see. I know.
Do you have any tips on gauging?
Well, it's bad because even when I teach a lot of workshops on Colorwork Socks, and I'm always like, the importance of gauge. And then I know if you're a sock knitter, you know how many stitches you need for your foot. Like half of them don't know, but half of them don't do it, but they don't even check it. And I'm not the knitting police. That's absolutely fine. But if they do it, so I have a test knitter who I know knits a lot looser than me, right? And I know her gauge is a lot bigger than mine, but I'm not going to force her to like go down to the tiniest needles on earth, I'm just like, well, just knit it at the bigger gauge on size 1, because I always do 3 different or more sizes. So yeah, I do say check your gauge, and very often it can be the gauge that's the problem. If it's not like getting over your heel, then you just got to go up a needle size normally. But yeah, I know with sock knitters especially, we don't look at our gauge. We just know, oh, my foot is this number of stitches.
Right.
So
Um, let's talk a little bit about like Instagram versus the real life. Like, so on Instagram, when you see socks, they all on these blockers, like whether it's wooden or plastic, and people are like, look, here's my sock, right? Because it looks so
yeah,
pretty.
perfect.
Do you need all this equipment to make your socks look pretty?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And again, when I teach, blocking is great for the Colorwork socks. If you don't block the Colorwork sock, it looks a bit. Once you've knit Colorwork, it never looks
Right.
great. So I say in my lessons, you don't need sock blockers. They look nice, but you don't need them. You can literally put your sock over a wine bottle.
Oh,
If the colour work is just, or olive oil, or, but if you've got a wine bottle, just wash your sock and stick it over the wine bottle, and it's gonna block it. Like, you don't need, yeah, Instagram does set them high.
so you have a huge following on Instagram. What's like social media for you in general? Like, is that the place you make connections? Is that the place you find inspirations? Is it just
Yeah.
think tool?
Yes. So I I started off. I Instagram has changed, but I started off and I loved Instagram because I was basically a new mum here in Switzerland. I didn't know many people at all, so it was like my little social group to the outside world. And I have made loads of really good friends, and I'm still making good friends on social media, on Instagram. Um, yeah, so it started, it's inspiration. It's still inspiring, Instagram, if you can actually get to see like photos and things rather than the memes of the cats. Although I do like a meme of a cat. But yeah, it has really changed, unfortunately, I think, with Instagram. But I love the community. I genuinely love the connection I have with a lot of knitters on there. I do like writing and sharing and speaking to people on there a lot, and I do enjoy it. But yeah, it has got quite large. Like, I could spend all day on Instagram just responding to people,
And
and then I'd get no
one
work
of the
done.
things I've read is that for the past decade, you've been knitting socks daily.
Yeah.
How many socks do you have in your possession?
They're on the floor. Um, yeah. Probably, I reckon, over 200, I think.
Okay,
Probably.
give us some tips. Like, how do we take care of socks? How do we store socks? How do we make sure that our time investment and
Yes.
energy doesn't go in vain?
Okay, so that's the thing with socks. If you wear them, and I do wear them, I know a lot of designers, they knit their socks and they're not for wearing, they're samples for, and I'm terrible because I started off knitting socks to keep my feet warm, right? That like I
Well,
and I
practical
like
approach, right? Like that's what they're for.
right, like that's what they're for. And I hate wearing shop bought socks now, and throughout the whole winter in Switzerland, I will wear a different pair of my socks every day. And every time I wear it, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to eventually kill them, and I can't. Especially the book socks, I try really hard not to wear because I know people. If I go and to knit festivals and things like that, people want to see the book socks. So I really try not to wear those. Um, Also, I think my most successful ever pattern was the herding cat socks. And I really try not to wear these, but I love them. So, okay, so with trying to get them to last, first of all, never ever, like, why would you? But never ever store them not washed, because that just attracts moths. So you've got to put them away. I do hand wash them too, which is asking a lot of people who I gift socks to my sister and I'm like, they're hand wash. And she's like, no, no, that's not happening. So yeah, you can put them in the wool wash in the knitting in the washing machine at a low temperature, but they're going to last longer if you hand wash them. And I do, and it's ugly, but I do store them in the plastic bins just to avoid moths. And I have started getting into mending them. There's something about,
My like one of my fondest childhood memories is my grandma
yeah,
teaching me how to mend socks.
yes, same. My sister has my grandma's mending sock, even though she hated socks, but she was still mending them, I think. I don't know. She wasn't keen on knitting them, but she was mending her family's socks. And yeah, there's something like, I don't know. It's almost like rebellious that we're not like buying brand new, and it just looks more loved when it's mended. I'm kind of like I personally I'm really interested in like visible mending, and there's a woman in Britain called Celia Pym, and she's actually at the moment in London near where I used to live. She's doing an exhibition, and it's just of socks, of old socks, mended socks, and they're all like in different colors. And I don't know, it's this again, my brain's like, "Ooh, that looks good."
Oh, it's something like I would love to see that exhibition. Sounds one.
Yeah, it looks so cool. It looks so cool.
Second sock syndrome. Do you get it?
So badly. I do get it. I am bad. Um,
I mean,
yeah,
especially when you have like 30 ideas in your head,
I know.
and how do you even like find time for the second sock?
Okay, so I do force myself to do it. And there's a whole section in the new book on what I do um to make myself start the next sock. Basically, if you start it and it's on your knitting needle, very often then you have to finish it, right? Because it's half done. It's
Oh,
like
because
it's
it
already
sits there and looks accusingly at you until you finish it.
exactly. Don't put it away. Don't put it in a bag. Don't put it in a cupboard somewhere. Yeah, leave it out and have it ready. But I'm really bad. Sometimes I've even like, oh well, and just taken the needle out to cast on a new idea. But I will admit, for the books, because they with especially with the first one, I hardly had any time to do the patterns. It was like a pattern a week, the time they gave me. I got my friend Louise, who knits just like me, same gauge, same. She's brilliant. She's absolutely brilliant. But I would knit one sock, send it off to Louise, and go knit the other sock. And that's how I got the book done so fast.
Right.
So yeah, she's my second sock knitter. But yeah, normally I force myself. And once I get towards the heel, I'm like, oh, happy days, I'm nearly done. So the motivation to wear it kicks in.
There recently has been a lot of controversy on, I see it on threads, I see it on Instagram about test knitters, about the use of test knitters and how that became an industry standard and it shouldn't be, and how the tech editor should be enough and it's not ethical to use free labor for something that you're going to make
Yeah,
money on. And I know that you use a lot of tech knitters. And I mean, just for the record, I've been a test knitter for years. And I think last year I did like 15 or something test knits. And
Wow.
I actually enjoyed that. And it wasn't socks, like it was like bigger projects also. So I'm sort of torn in between these two. Like I understand where they're coming from and I understand
Yeah.
the ethical dilemma, but where do you stand on that?
So, absolutely. First of all, I pay Louise for the second sock for the sample knitting. But with the test knitters, I try really hard to make it as flexible as they like. I try to always give them a month um, to do like a pair, and I always if they can't do, and I write this and they know, well, I hope they know this, if they can't do it, if something comes up and something does, you know, someone gets ill or a kid gets ill or something happens, like they now have like a huge project or work, there's honestly there's no, I'm like, I always tend to get more test knitters than I actually need. And there's no drama with me. There's no, I'm going to charge you for the pattern. There's none of this at all. If they want to drop out of test knitting, that's fine. I've loads of them have dropped out. You know, they've done their bit. They've had enough. Totally get that. Still try to remain friends with them. Some of them, like I end up becoming like best friends with them. So yeah, I do, but I do see that argument about not having it test knitted. And I do really say I don't want to force anyone ever to be doing anything they don't want to do. And even if they're halfway through, I totally understand if they want to drop out. I also um I also say as well, and I know it's like nothing compared to like how much they would be paid for their time, but I say you get the pattern finished as well, and also any one of my self-published patterns as well. So, but yeah, I mean, they are amazing. They
Well,
have high.
what kind of information do you seek from testers? Like what's most
Well,
valuable?
it's well, so basically, I have a tech editor who's brilliant, and then so she'll 99.2% of the time will spot any mistake. So they're not really having to tech edit my patterns. I don't want them to be doing that. But you know, they'll come to me and they'll go, like with one of the new designs in the book, the ladybird socks, which is behind me. It was perfect. It was perfect on paper, and mathematically it worked. But it was three colours in one round, and 50% of the test knitters. I didn't have so many test knitters for the book, but yeah, so I think seven of them were knitting the different sizes, and 50% of them couldn't get the sock to fit. And I thought, I can't release it like that. I can't let that out into the world. And then 50% of the people can't knit it. And well, technically, it should fit your foot. So I had to basically change the pattern. So yeah, definitely, if they say to me, it doesn't fit, like sometimes it'll be like, well, you need to, you know, make your floats looser. But when it's 50% of them, you know that the pattern is not working somehow. So I like that when they're honest with me and they go, that doesn't work, that doesn't look right. And I'm so lucky with the test knitters that they are kind of like my friends, and they will honestly say like, this isn't good, or I don't like the look of that, or and also some of them are so creative too, and come up with really good like colors and new ideas color wise. And a few of them have gone off and done designed socks of their own after test knitting with me, which is cool. It's cool. So
Well, another thing that you're being controversial about is the length of the float. So there is
I know,
all
you're
these
right.
schools of thoughts, right? Like of how many stitches is the maximum amount of stitches, and
I
people
know.
and people say five, and there you are going and like do seven. Tell,
Seven,
tell me
eight,
about it.
nine. I do. Um, I do. I am. I am a great believer. It's just from teaching so many people Colorwork Socks, and whenever they come to me and we're in the lesson, they're like, "I don't understand. It doesn't stretch. It doesn't go over my foot." And I'll say, can I look inside at the floats? And they've twisted every 3 stitches, and then they've created this fabric that just does not stretch. And I totally understand it if it's like a mitten, and a mitten doesn't need to stretch, or if it's a sleeve, because your fingers are like that, they stretch out like that. But if you look down at your toes, they aren't stretching out so much. And you need the fabric of a sock to stretch over your heel. So you need your floats to be long and stretchy like that.
Right.
And what happens is, with quite a lot of wear, is they'll actually kind of felt together as well. And I've honestly never caught my toes in the floats either. But also, the stitches are very, very small with socks. So 5 stitches on a on the gauge for a sock is like, it's tiny compared to like 5 stitches with worsted weight.
Right.
So yeah. So yeah, but yeah, you're right. I do get a lot of
Well, I heard your children were complaining about spaghetti in their socks.
they do, because I'm terrible at sewing in ends.
Well, is there
Look, it's,
like some favorite tasks when you design and knit socks, and like least favorite tasks?
yeah. So definitely sewing in ends, definitely. And it's, I really need to learn, and well, I do know how to do it, but I need to remember and do it. Is you can knit the ends in as you're going along. And I kind of need to discipline myself a bit and do that. The problem is I'm like, ooh, I want to see what the next thing looks like. And then to try and get myself to sit down. But it is like meditative to weave in the ends. But yeah, my brain's like, it wants new, it wants, what's next? What's the next thing gonna look like?
Talk a little bit about your process and how you balance it all, because you
Yeah,
you draw it and then you make it into a schematic, and then you try to knit it, and then it, and then it goes back and forth until you're satisfied with how it looks, and then you knit the sock, and then you have to write the pattern. Tell me like how you balance it, how much time you actually spend knitting versus all the drawing and like writing a pattern and all that stuff.
yeah. The knitting is, it's not enough. It's not. It's the knitting. Yeah, I wish there was more knitting.
I wonder if there's like a single knitter alive who thinks like, oh, I have too much time knitting. they only they
Can
only
you imagine?
4 hours in a day
I
and
have enough
still
hours
so
to
far.
knit, right? But it's not just. So it's like yarn shopping. That's another hobby, isn't it? Like getting the right colors together for the design, and it's drawing it up, and then it's going back forward. Because sometimes you draw it up and it just doesn't look good at all. And that's where I tell you what's really good is having teenagers, because if I show them it and they're like, "Ugh, what's that?" Like, it's rubbish. So they're very harsh critics, and they do really help me make sure I get that right. So you've got that bit, then you've got the knitting up, then the writing, which I'm much faster than I was because I've written so many patterns. Then you've got the tech editing bit, then you've got the test knitting bit. Then when you really, then you've got people, you've got customers who often want help.
Right.
Yeah. And then you've got the social media as well, which you need to keep on top of. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is a lot. I do find, but then I love it. So, but I do find I'm often seem to be doing something from the moment I wake until like I'm like, right, okay, phone down now. It's the evening. But even then I'm knitting. So
Well, you mentioned your kids being your hardest critics.
yeah, they are.
Are they also your biggest supporters? Like, do they see you as the crazy sock lady, or do they think, oh, my mom is like a famous knitwear designer and book author?
They think it's mad, but they really do help a lot. My son would like me to knit more socks for him, and he's kind of sad about that. So I'm going to have to do that at some point. But both girls are very creative. My younger daughter is actually training to be a graphic designer at the moment. So I am quite naughty. I do um, ask her a lot, like, what do you think of this color combination? Does this look like this? What this is supposed to be? She's also she's very good at Instagram too. So she knows like so I take so many photos that's another major thing. You have to take nice photos to help sell the pattern, and she's very good at going, no, not that photo, that, yeah, so she's very good at that. So they've been really, really helpful. They're the ones who got me onto Instagram as well. So as soon as I went on, they're all left because they were like, ew, my mum's on here. And then they all got me onto TikTok. So, and I love now TikTok. I really enjoy it. People, it's a lot more, you were saying with Instagram, everything's perfect. Nothing's perfect on TikTok. It's like you grab the phone and you make a 15-second thing. You don't need to be perfect. It's all very kind of random, and everyone's very young and very creative. So they got me onto TikTok for kids too, and now I'm really enjoying that and I'm seeing a lot of new young knitters, and they're very inspiring on there too. So yeah, the kids have they've helped me, but they do think it's mad. They
Well,
do.
do you find yourself tired of being the entertainer sometimes? Because like I feel like my problem with social media is that like whenever I post something that I think is of value in my eyes, people just scroll by, and then I'll put something like, oh, this cord doesn't straighten, and it goes viral, you know.
Viral. Yeah, the my cat, I think my cat is actually more popular than myself. But do I get tired of enter? I don't know. I think I kind of enjoy it. I kind of I do kind of enjoy it. I should think about that more often. Why?
Well, you published two books in 2 years pretty much, right? Like, is there a
Yeah.
plan for the next one already? Because I mean, this one just came out. So if
Right.
you haven't seen
Yeah.
it, really fun book, and you have a lot of like really cute cupcake
Yeah.
socks and mom socks and card socks and all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
get the book and knit yourself a pair of fun socks. But like, is there already next couple
Not
in the project?
not yet, but sometimes I'm like in the bathroom brushing my teeth, and I'm like, that would be a good idea for the next one. There's a list. I've created a list, but no, they haven't asked what happened. What happened last time? I think I wrote the first book in 2021 because it was during COVID, which was kind of helpful at the time, even though it was a terrible time. But because I couldn't be going out or anything, I had more time to sit down and write the book. So for book writing, that was kind of helpful. But um, so that the first one came out 2022, and then they kind of gave me like a year gap, and then I went off and did an online tutorial series for beginners with Domestika, and that was literally like writing a book because it was all scripted and it was so much work. And basically the intention is for me to teach a total beginner who doesn't know how to knit Colorwork socks. And I really thought, no, this is impossible. And I worked so hard on it. and it's been crazy because total beginners have knitted Colorwork Socks after doing that. So I think like there's been 9,000 students. So I did that in my rest year, and then the year after I started writing the next book.
Well,
So
talk
yeah.
about rest here. Like when people get older, they start planning their retirement and they start thinking of how they're gonna like, travel the world and just do nothing.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about slowing down ever, or like your brain is on fire and you busy for the next 70 years?
I think it's never going to happen. I do sometimes worry, like late at night. Gosh, I hope my eyesight stays, and I hope I don't develop, any issues with my hand. I do worry about that. Um, but yeah, I think I'm going to be, well, like, also currently it's like a business. And if I didn't do this, I'd be working. I'd need to work because basically this business is helping me pay the rent. So currently, yeah, I can't financially, but I think when I'm older, I would love if I could still be relevant when I'm an older, little old lady. If I can still be relevant, if I still have my health, if I still have my eyesight and my hands, I would love to still be going. That would be so cool. Maybe at a slower pace. Maybe.
Or maybe even faster, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have no children at home. I'd have more time.
Have, yeah, all the freedom to do things you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So you know how you mentioned that exhibit with the visibly mended socks.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself putting on a fashion show or like exhibit of your socks?
I'd love that. That sounds so crazy. I'd love a little gallery, like a little event with all my socks hanging up on the walls. Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be so cool. If there's anybody who owns a gallery listening to
Yeah.
the interview, just
Anyone who has a
show it
gallery,
and make it happen because that would be super cool.
it would be cool. That would be a dream.
I have a very good friend of mine, Dr. Srinivasan Pillai, and he wrote a book called Tinkle, Dabble, Doodle, Try. And it's all
Oh,
about the power of unconscious mind and how like we're most creative when we just let our mind wander. Do you,
true.
does your mind wander, or are you like on the schedule for all the things you need to do and all the balls that's in the air?
So my most creative time, and I crave that time and I protect it. Like literally, I've learned no, I don't agree to do anything then. Is the bit after Christmas when there's nothing to do and like up until like the 2nd or 3rd of January, that bit, I just want to do nothing and I want to think of nothing. And every single year since I've been designing, I come up with my best idea when I've got nothing to do. So it's true. It's when you're like bored. I mean, what knitter's ever bored? Who like?
But
But yeah,
when you think about like all the designs you've done, is there like some that you are particularly proud of?
yes, yes. Um, I'm still personally freaked out how popular these were, the herding cat socks, and it was so simple. And
Because
I'm always really
they're
surprised.
so sassy. They're not like regular cats. You're not just taking.
No, they're like my cat. Um, I'm always surprised when I do or have an idea. I always go check that someone else hasn't done it because I don't. I really I'd be mortified if people think I'm copying. Although that does sometimes happen um, accidentally, but I want to avoid it. So I'm always like surprised when I've come up with an idea and no one's done it before. So and I was with these, and it was literally inspired because I live in the apartments here, and we all have different cats, and they're always coming up to visit because I have these cat stairs, and they come up to see us. So it was literally it was just like this crazy personal project, and I did it during that time after Christmas, and it was kind of like a selfish knit. And yeah, I'm still shocked how popular that was. But the another one that I'm really proud of. I think I've worn these quite recently. These ones, the magical mycelium socks with toadstools all over them. So I had to kind of place the toadstools and the spots and the toadstool stalks. So there's no long floats.
Mm.
So it's kind of like really easy. Easy. It's 3 colors in one row. It's not that easy, but it could be harder. So I was really proud that I managed. I was successful and I managed to do that, and I managed to do it in 4 different sizes, which means I had to kind of like do 2 different charts for 2 sizes, like that way. But yeah, I was really proud of these. They're not the easiest to knit, but I think they're really cool. So when I first ever did a toadstool design, I did the magic toadstool socks, and that was my first ever successful, really successful sock pattern. And I basically did it because my child wanted socks with toadstools on, and no one at that point had ever done socks with toadstools. And I think I sat down and I drew it, and I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. It's the pattern has really long floats. Like now, I don't think I would be that brave to release them. But anyway, yeah, I'm kind of proud of those ones too, because I was like, I felt like I had kind of launched toadstools onto socks. So
Last year, I'm very reluctantly dabbled in design. And what I found most difficult was to come up with the names of the designs. And I love the names of your socks. Tell me how you come up with the names, and is it ever difficult?
I hate giving him credit, but my husband is really good at it. He is Mr. Like pun. Yeah, he often he often comes up with song titles, and they're always from the 1990s. And I'm like, oh, it sounds like it's so dated. You've got to come up with, you've got to listen to new songs. But yeah, I'll credit him. He's been very helpful with the sock names. I do have a friend who's another designer who recently brought me into the 21st century and told me, I can actually ask ChatGPT to help as well. I have no clue.
Right.
So yeah, but I actually, with the book, I had to sign a contract saying I was not using any ChatGPT or AI to write anything. So I didn't for the books. I used my husband's brain to help.
Comes handy at times.
At times, not often.
I think my husband's most shocking moment of my knitting life was when somebody called him Mr. Fiberchats. So
The Fiberchats. Oh.
I don't know if he loved that, but he was amused for sure.
Right? I can imagine. Mr. Stone knits. Yeah, well, I think, yeah.
Just an idea. Well,
It is.
I want to thank you so much for being my guest today. It was super fun getting to know you, and I hope I'm gonna get to see you very soon at Swiss Yarn Festival because I'm planning
Yes.
on there this year.
I'm looking forward to meeting you in person there. I love that festival. It's a lot of fun, and I'm good friends with Merritt, who you know too. So yeah, it'll be so cool to see you and meet you
I'm
properly.
really looking forward to that. Thank you so very much. It was super fun.
Thank you for asking me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Charlotte just published her new beanie hat pattern, and it's called Sunflower Power Beanie. And she's offering very generously 25% discount to the viewers of my channel. All you have to do is to use the promo code Fiberchats, all uppercase letters, and it's going to give you 25% off her sunflower power beanie. This promo code will expire on Thursday, February 6th. So take advantage of it and grab your copy of the pattern. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, happy crafting.